Hey guys, and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to show you guys how to look at a circle and place a circle on a 1 point and a 2 point perspective, and then we will go ahead and create a cube. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing that I want to do is I just want to quickly draw a circle. I'm just going to use some Photoshop tools here just to move things along, right? And okay, this is a circle, and I'm going to place a bounding box around the circle. And let's just give that a different color. Right. And what I want to do is I want to look for relationships between a square and a circle so that I can use this on a 1 point perspective. Alright, there's a vanishing point and a horizon line, and let's say I'm going to place ellipse there. Right, and I just quickly want to set up 3 views. So I'm going to have a top view, which is going to be y. Let's have an XYZ system type of thing here. So we'll have a y looking down at the y, and we'll have an x and a z. Alright, so this is top view. Let's have a side view. Side view will be looking into the z and seeing y and x. Right, and this will be my perspective there. Okay, so when I draw a bounding box around the circle, the first thing that I notice is that these sides touches the square. Okay, so I'm just going to, let me first just subdivide the square just to get center point, and I'm going to divide the square in half. Right, and you can see I'm also dividing the circle in half. Okay, that's a relationship. And same thing, I'm dividing the circle and vertically dividing the rectangle. Okay, so this is a square around a circle, and the point, okay, which they relate almost perfectly, alright, or they do, but is this line here. Diameter of the circle is exactly the same size as the sides of the square. So these two lines, these two axes, are the same size as the bounding box. Right. Okay, now that we know that, and we know how to put a box in perspective, right, because these lines are just going to recede to the vanishing point, and the horizontal lines are going to be parallel. So it's easy to put a bounding box in perspective, and then I just need the circle to touch a point there, halfway on that line, halfway on this line, and so on and so forth. Alright, so I'm going to create the same thing on top view. So I just want to show you guys using the XYZ system that what I'm going to try and do. So placing a circle right on that axis there. Right. And I'm looking for a box that encloses the circle like that. And when I want to go to the cube, right, when I wanted to design a cube, I need a circle on the ground plane, and I need a circle on one of the other planes. So on the Z plane, I'm going to have a circle as well, and then I will have a cube. So I'm just going to, actually I just need the same circle, and you can see me placing the circle, the only thing that I need, right, is the height and this middle line. So this is very important as I'm placing this, because this is the same way that we're thinking about things when we place this in perspective. So usually I would have those two lines, the height lines, and I can close the line here, and you can see it's going to touch the center there, and it's going to touch the center point there and there. So these are the conditions for a circle to live in, right? Okay. So if I can mimic these conditions in perspective, then what I've managed to do is to put a perfect circle in perspective. And then I want to take that perfect circle, I want to put it on any surface that I can. And this is how you place the ellipse, right? Okay, so I'm going to show you something important right now, and it's, you can see these two axes. At this moment I can't do anything with these axes because they're both the same. But as soon as I take an ellipse, right, as soon as I take an ellipse like this, and right, let's, as soon as I take a circle, I need to stroke this, and as soon as I squash this, right, you can see that this axis stays the same and one of the axes gets smaller, right? And if I squish it from this side, one remains the same and one gets smaller. So the small axis, right, we call the minor axis. And what I'm going to do is, okay, it's a point there and there. Okay, again, I'm checking the conditions so that I can know where to put this axis. Because this is what's happening. Alright, so there's the minor axis, okay, and the major axis. This is where it just gets a little bit, you just have to understand what's happening here, right? So this is looking at the anatomy of ellipse. Okay, so we're just looking at the ellipse like this, and we see that there's a small axis, alright, this is minor, and there's a longer axis that connects these, the furthest point and this, these two furthest points from each other, connects them, right? And this is the major axis. Alright, this axis, the minor, is very important, but the major axis is actually, we ignored it, alright, because it doesn't mean anything to us, it can't help us. Okay, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so this is the basic setup for this, right? And if I do the same thing here, I'm going to take this point that's the furthest or the longest axis, I'm just going to divide it. Alright, okay, so there's the major axis, this one, and this is the minor axis running through there. Now the important thing that we want to do with the ellipse and with the circle is we want to be able to put this bounding box around the circle, right? We found the relations, the relationships, and then we want to use this box to manipulate the circle, right? Because it's easy in perspective view, 1 point and 2 point, to actually work with the box and not with the circle or the ellipse by itself. So look what happens when I'm checking all the conditions of a circle and I'm doing it perfectly, putting this box around there. Look what happens to the major axis, right? So okay, I'm going to say this line and this line needs to go to a vanishing point and touch the circle, right, on a point there and there, and these 2 points need to be across from each other. So I'm just going to take a line that recedes to a vanishing point and touches the ellipse right there, and I'm going to do the same with this. And you can see clearly now in perspective that where these lines, where this bounding box touches this ellipse, is about there and there, right? And if I draw that line, you can see the major axis doesn't even touch the bounding box, right? And that's not something that we want. This is something that can't help us, right? So for this reason, that the major axis in perspective is quite unpredictable, we don't use it. But the minor axis is perfectly predictable, and we can use that to place this actually on any surface. So we ignore the major axis. Alright, so let's go on. So now these 2 points are touching the sides. Alright, so think of these 2 lines as going to a vanishing point up there. Now I just need, and the minor axis, you can see this one is going to this vanishing point. So that's fine. Now I just need to close this box. So I'm just going to draw a horizontal line here, touching this side, and I'm just going to extend these guys. Alright, and now I can close this box. And then what I've done is I've created a perfect square, right, on the ground plane. How do I know this is ground plane? Because this minor axis, this one, is perpendicular to the surface, and this is 90 degrees to the ground. Okay, so let's just subdivide this bounding box, and you will see where the center point is, right? The center point is on this line, and it's not on the major axis. Alright, so ignore the major axis. And if I divide this, I find center point, and there's a line, a diameter of the circle running through there. I know that this line and this line and this line is the same, as well as these lines are the same. So perfect square with a perfect circle placed on a 1-point perspective. Alright, so you can see that the ellipse and the circle thing is a condition thing, right? So you need to know these conditions in the bounding box and the relationship between a circle and a square to properly place this. And you need to know how perspective grids work. Alright, so let's get to the side view here. Alright, and before that, I just want to show you guys this vanishing or this bounding box, right? I'm going to show you again with a circle and a box type of thing. So let's just have a circle again. Alright, and I'm going to have a bounding box around that. And this is what it's all about, right? It's about doing all these experiments and just figuring it out for yourself so that you can actually use this in your workflow. And I'm going to make it purple. Alright, so again we've got the same setup, but now I'm going to take this bounding box, right, and I'm just going to rotate this. And as I'm rotating it, you can see that the points stay on the circle, right? And it doesn't matter what the orientation of this box is. I am supposed, or what I can do is I can place this box in any orientation around this circle, and I'm still going to need to find the same points, right? So these 2 points are across from each other, and those 2 points are, and it stays the same like this. Alright, so this is awesome, because what I'm going to do now is, in 1-point perspective, it was like I was the cameraman, or I was looking in this direction, and I was looking at this circle on the ground, okay? But now I'm going to move. I'm going to stand this side, and I'm going to look into this corner of this bounding box, creating them. Then I'm going to create 2 vanishing points, and I'm going to change this into the 2-point perspective, right? Okay, and let me show you guys how I'm going to do that. So nothing changed with the circle, right? The bounding box just kept on moving around us. So what this tells me is that I'm supposed to rotate this box around here, right? And the circle will stay the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist this so that I can actually have 2 vanishing points. And then I can start designing my cube. Alright, so let's rotate this bounding box around this ellipse. And this is a good exercise, and this is good to practice this over and over and over, because when you're able to do this, alright, and rotate it, it means that you're able to find vanishing points on the horizon line, and it means that you're actually very aware of the conditions of a circle and ellipse and the relationship that this diagram has with this one in perspective. Alright, okay. So let's go through this. This is now as if I'm starting from the beginning. So what I'm going to do is, alright, just remember the camera's orientation to the object. So I'm going to have this point, alright, rotate to this point, and then I'm going to have like this little triangle flappy things, okay? You know like how it is if you've got two rectangles. It's like a star almost. Alright. Okay, let's get to this. So the first thing that I know is, okay, I'm going through this again, is I need two lines that touches this the circle, right? And I know in a 2-point perspective, if I start with a ground plane, right, I've got two vanishing or two lines, or this plane is going to the right vanishing point, right? So it will help if you understand the XYZ a little bit better to talk about these planes, right? So let's say the right vanishing point is this x-axis. So I need an axis that goes to a right vanishing point, and I need a z-axis that goes to a left vanishing point, and then the y is the vertical. Alright, so now I know that these two lines here, alright, or a pair of these, any two of these pairs will point to a vanishing point. So let's say I'm standing here, I'm looking at this corner, this will go to the right, and this will go to the left. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to have a point here, and then I'm going to draw a line that touches this circle, and it's going to hit the horizon line somewhere. Okay, and what is going to define this is this ellipse, right? Because I'm just going to start with a point here somewhere. I can actually just draw a line that's extending past the circle. Alright, and there's my right vanishing point. Okay, and this is defined by this ellipse. It's done and finished. So there's my first point, right? It's like one of these points. First point is already established, and one side. So now I just need the other side touching the ellipse again. So from there, I'm just going to come through and touch the ellipse, alright, and extend a little bit past that. And now I can see that it's touching there. So these 2 points, alright, so I've got a point there and I've got a point there, or these two, depends on how you're looking at this, but they need to go and be across from each other and go to the same vanishing point. So now if I just draw a line through them, let's just extend the horizon line. So if I draw a line through them, okay, they will hit the horizon line somewhere. And this will be the left vanishing point. And there it is. Now from the left vanishing point, I can actually touch the circle again here. And now if I've got this point, I can go back to the right vanishing point and get my point there. And then I'm going to the left again, touch the circle, right, and you can see it touches exactly there. So this box is perfectly placed around the same ellipse. And what this means is that we actually have the same size square, alright, on a 1-point and a 2-point perspective, because it's placed around the exact same circle. Okay, so let me try to get this to be a little bit more visible. Alright, and the only thing that I did was I was just looking at the relationship between the circle and the square and the side and this orthographic view, this draft view, and the perspective. Okay, and Now I can actually go on and I can actually on the y plane, right, because x, y, z, and the y plane is the top. No, sorry, this is the y plane. So now I can just draw on the z plane or on the x plane, and if I'm able to place this ellipse again, right, then I will get the exact height of a square. And then if I close the box in 2-point perspective or 1-point perspective, then I will have my cube. So I'm just going to lower the opacity of all these drawings so that we can see a little bit better. And let's just have this square on the ground a little bit darker. And it's going to be a cube with a little bit of distortion on this, right? Or it shouldn't actually be, because we should be in the 60-degree kind of vision. Yeah. All right, but let's see what happens. Okay, so now I've got my y-axis there at the back. This one will be my x-axis, and this will be my z. And I'm going to work on the z-plane. So axis perpendicular to the axis is always the plane. And what I need is I need this height, right? So somewhere going to this right vanishing point, I need a height, but I don't know what it is. So I'm going to work with what I've got. I've got the sides, right? So I've got this side and I've got this side. And I've got a middle point. Looking at my conditions, right? What I've got here is I've got the bottom, and I've got this middle point, and I've got the sides. Now I just need an ellipse in there that touches there and there. This needs to be opposite each other, and then I can close my box and I can double check if those points go to the same vanishing point. Alright, so this is where the minor axes come to play. Okay, the previous one, the minor axis, was just straight down, because if you look at the side view, right, let's look at this axis system, there's the ground, alright, and the y-axis is perpendicular to the surface, right, and this ellipse is placed on the y-axis, so it's placed there. So now if I want to place a perpendicular line to the z-plane, right, it needs to go to the left vanishing point. And if I've got one of the things of a minor axis is it's perpendicular to the surface on which it's going to be placed, right? So I want to place this on the z-plane, so I need a line that's perpendicular on that plane. Okay, and that's just basic perspective grid rules, and then I can place an ellipse around that. Okay, so I don't know where this minor axis is going to be, right? It's somewhere, it's obviously going to the middle somewhere, but at this moment I can just guess where that is because I don't have a top, I can't do the visions, I can't find the center point. So I'm just going to have a general idea of where this minor axis might be, right? And I'm going to place an ellipse around this idea of it, but I'm going to focus on this point and where it needs to touch, and then close. Then I'll close my box and I will see if the minor axis was right or not. Okay, so I'm just going to line up my hand with the direction of the minor axis, and now I'm going to just take a very good guess at what this ellipse should look like. Having it touch at the bottom, okay, I can do it a little bit better than that. Oops, sorry. That's the nice thing about Photoshop, I can actually undo. That's not right. Let me just place it with the again, see what I need to do, right? So it's actually good if I do it this way. I'm just going to place the ellipse, alright, with this tool, and I need to let it touch that side and that side, and I need to let it touch the bottom there, okay? And look what's going to happen when I just release this, and I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to stroke this guy out so that we can see that what happens when you do this the wrong way. Alright, so this is the ellipse that I just placed down, right? So let's look at this ellipse. Let's see where the minor axis is. So I'm going to divide this ellipse in half, right? Symmetrical. So this minor axis is actually parallel to the horizon line. Okay, well that happens when you take a circle and you just squish in the sides. And now what I'm going to do is let's have this vanishing point touch the top there. Alright, there's a line there, and it touches there. So okay, that's fine. One of the conditions are met. This condition is not met because this is not going to the right vanishing point. Alright, and already this tells us that something is skew here because this needs to go to the same vanishing point as all the other sides. Okay, so just by looking at that, just by looking at the minor axis, this ellipse is not right. Okay, so how do I correct that? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the minor axis of this ellipse, right, and I'm going to point it at the left vanishing point. Let me just have that there. Alright, so I'm going to point this so that it converges and meets up with that line there, and then if I check the conditions again, right, it touches a point there and it touches a point there now, and this should line up with the right vanishing point. Alright, and it does. And now if I connect up there, there's a point there perfectly. Alright, and there I perfectly placed this ellipse inside those edges of this box, of the square, going to the right vanishing point. Alright, so this is the right ellipse for the square. So I've placed a perfect square on the z-plane. Okay, now it's quite easy. I'm just going to connect all the sides, right? Because two squares on these different planes will give me a perfect cube. Alright, that's going up there, connects there, and these two will connect. Alright. And why it looks so tall, right? It's because there's distortion on this camera. Because everything is checked, and two squares obviously makes a cube. So this is in perspective with this camera lens, especially with this camera lens. I think these vanishing points needs to go out a little bit, but yeah, this is the cube. Okay, so that's the way, and that's how circle work and how ellipses work, right? We can get a little bit more into this. The video is at 28 minutes now. Alright, so let me just show you guys a few good practices, right? Some exercises that you can do just to get a little bit better. Or if you are actually having trouble, you can go back to these, right? So a good exercise is when you have a minor axis, right? Just draw a line, okay, have it any direction, and just practice placing ellipses, right? Any degree ellipse, like a fat one, a thin one, around this axis, and try to place it symmetrical. All right, so that these two sides are perfectly matched, so that if you can imagine folding them on each other, that they would actually um, be the same thing. All right, and try having fat ellipses and thin ones, long ones, different sizes. You can have ellipses inside each other, right? This is a good practice. So minor axis first, then the ellipse. That's not good because it's lopsided, right? Then you can reverse engineer the thing, because with ellipses you work with what you've got. Sometimes you've got the minor axis, sometimes you don't. Okay, so then you can start by just drawing ellipses. Try not to have this egg type of thing. Just have a nice, that's a better ellipse, right? And then what you do is you divide this in half, okay? And imagine that axis going there, through there, like a wheel, like a spoke of, like a wheel axle, right? Look what happens when I actually just draw a vertical and through there. You can already see that this is wrong, right? Because this line needs to be perpendicular to the surface. So it's got its little tilt to this, and I can see this by looking at the minor axis. Right? And yeah, and what you do is you do fat ones like that, divided, thin ones, and you divide that. And soon you will see that what you're actually doing is, this is looking at a circle, right? Like head on, and if you squeeze it just a little bit, and you make it a little bit thinner, and thinner, and thinner, you're actually playing around with the degree of the ellipse. And this is the angle at what that you're looking at this ellipse at. So imagine you're standing on a plane, alright, and there's some circles on the ground here, and you're looking down at them, right? This angle is the degree, and you will see that if you've got a horizon line, you place a camera and a 1 point perspective, that the closer the ellipse is to you, the fatter it is, alright? Because you see more of this. As you move further into perspective, they will get thinner and narrow, and eventually will end up in a line, right? If this circle was right beneath you, like there, you will look down and you will see a perfect circle like this. And the more you look forward, it will be fat, thinner, thinner, like that. Alright, so practice this, right? The degree. It's only playing around with the thickness, but the minor axis still same thing. Divides all these in the center. Another good exercise is if you have a point, right, and you place an ellipse so that the minor axis actually aims at that point, right? So if I'm just focusing on the ellipse, dividing this in half, right, not like that, or this, between the narrowest points, alright, try aiming for that point, and you make thin ellipses, small ones, big ones, again, same. And you can see it misses a bit, but I'm going to try again. Let's have a one here. Okay, I can see that this one is going to miss. Not the best ellipse either. Oh well, it's close enough. Alright, but this is good practice as well. I like this. This is a nice exercise. And soon you will see, if you play enough with circles. Okay, if I want to aim at that line with a circle, I'm going to place a perfect circle there, a little bit fatter one there, and then if I place a real thin one there, you can actually see the turn in space. Okay, and the main goal of this exercise is just to get you guys familiar with this, right? To see it. Your brain will recognize these things, and if you divide something with enough practice and you divide it like this, your brain will say, no, there's something wrong with that, right? Because the more you do it, the more you will become familiar with the subject. Alright, something like that. And then the next thing will be how to place a bounding box properly around this. So for this, you would need to go and focus a little bit, because now you just have to go look at the conditions again, right? And you will see, if you just draw ellipse and you try to draw a box around this, your first attempt will probably end up real bad. Because what we tend to do is, we just tend to, alright, okay, place a line there, place a line there, so it touches, and straight line there, and straight line there. Alright, so that it touches. But what happens here is, this is not perspective, right? Because why not? All the lines is actually meeting up. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But remember, these lines are meeting up, and this is the major axis now. Okay, the one thing that I showed you we cannot rely on, because these two lines, they need to go to vanishing point, right? They need to recede. They need to foreshorten. Okay, and if you do that, and you draw a line parallel touching this, you will see it's going to be a point that's a little bit closer to that side, right? And you will see that this line, right, it's straight, and this is how much it's tilted, and the same is going to happen for this side, right? So you're going to have a vanishing point and the line that's coming in, and then you're going to double check the conditions, and you will see everything will meet up. If you work with this major axis, you're going to probably run into some problems. Alright, so the easiest way to practice ellipse in a bounding box is with a 1 point perspective with a center vanishing point, alright, coming straight down. So you have that, you've got your horizon line, and you place your ellipse around here. Alright, you place it as symmetrically as you can, and then you just have this line parallel to the horizon and the picture plane. Close this up, you can see those points are actually touching, and now you just need a line going through there, and they need to touch there and there. And if you connect that, that's not the major axis, remember, that's the the axis that actually goes through the middle of the bounding box. Okay, and you can double check, and if the center point is a little bit low, then it means your ellipse was just a little bit off, but you can fix that easily, right? And remember, minor axis is on the ground, so it's like that. If I want to tilt this plane, right, even on a 1 point perspective, let's do this. So I'm going to just quickly show you guys a trick. Okay, I'm going to use a circle to lift a plane, and then I'm going to place a ellipse around that. So let's do, okay, so now if I want to place a circle here, I'm going to need, this is my minor axis, so I need to flip this a little bit. Alright, so if I divide this ellipse, it's going to be in half. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to have a vertical there and there. Right, these lines should be parallel to the verticals in the horizon line. And now I'm going to take this line and I'm going to tilt it up 45 degrees. And I'm just looking at this little square, right? So if I divide that in half, this is 45 degrees. And this line is going to go back, and I'm just going to take that line there. I'm going to follow the same tilt. Alright, so there's the tilt. And what I want to do is, if I want to place an ellipse on here, right, now I need a line that's perpendicular to this plane, right? And if I'm going to guess this, it's going to be somewhere there, or it's not going to be proper. But if I can figure out, like, listen, okay, this was the little bit of tilt on this side, I'm just going to draw in there. I'm just looking at this little area, and now I'm going to go under 90 degrees because this ellipse is flat on the ground, but now it's tilted. So I'm going to have the same tilt just to this side. So I'm just going to say that this much, it tilted this much, so I'm just going to tilt it a little bit this side, and I'm going to guess, take a good guess, that this is the plane that's perpendicular to the surface. So now, oops, oops. So now I'm just going to mimic this line, and there's the minor axis now. And now I can place the ellipse around there. Alright, but that's not all. Now I have to double check the bounding box because this degree of this ellipse, alright, I might have put it in too thin or too fat. I won't know, but the nice thing is then we can check it with the box. So from there I'm going to have it touch all around, and I'm just going to follow the perspective of the plane. Remember, this is 1 point perspective, so these lines just need to be parallel to each other. So I'm going to draw a parallel line there and at the back, and if I connect these 2 points, they should go back to the right vanishing point, and they do. So all the conditions were met, all these points are aligned with each other, so this ellipse and the minor axis is placed properly on this tilt. Right. Okay guys, so I think that's it for ellipses, alright, and the cubes and all those things. When you play around with this enough, you will see that you can actually start building cylinders, and especially with the exercises, right? If you take this minor axis and you put a cylinder that, or you put an ellipse like that, and you put one that's just a little bit tilted away, and you connect these sides, then you're actually starting to build these cylinders. But the key at the end of the day with ellipses will be in the bounding box and the minor axis. Alright guys, so I think that's that. Hope this is helpful. This is actually it's so simple actually, but it's actually also quite complicated. So just keep on practicing. If you struggle, just go back to some of these basics, and otherwise just focus on the 2D circle again and try to put that in perspective and the bounding box. And I think you will be able to figure this out for yourself. All right. Okay, guys. Until next time. Cheerio.